Well, I am going to record another banjo tune, and these days, in order for me to motivate myself to learn a new tune, it's got to have something kind of specially interesting to me in it. Otherwise, I just can't get myself to learn one of these things. People joke that a banjo tune, it just sounds the same as any other banjo tune, and that there's an old joke about that. I think I mentioned it on a previous video. It's not true, of course. Well, it's sort of true. Well, and maybe it's true, but not completely true. But I know that if a tune is too easy for me to learn, that means somehow I already know all of its constituents, so I can just put it together quick. So that I don't find as interesting. And then it's got to have some other little thing to it that does it for me. And this tune has that. For one thing, it's in the key of D. And most banjo tunes played out of open G tuning, as this one is, are in the key of G, and that makes sense. But in this case, it's the key of D, so you play out of a slightly different position, or a slightly different, across different changes out of the G tuning. But the high G string, the drone string, that one is tuned up a whole step to an A. Now, not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but normally you have two Ds, two Gs, and two Gs, and a B, and that is your open G tuning. But here, this one that I misnamed a minute ago is actually tuned up to an A. And so what that does is, first of all, it gets rid of the G droning string. And when you're playing in the key of D, a G note is kind of nice here and there as a sort of a suspension, but you got to get rid of that. You don't need that thing droning away all the time. It doesn't sound good. It fatigues the ear, at least the way I see it. And so this gets rid of that by tuning up to an A, and then gives you a nice high A across the D chord, which is good for all your scales and arpeggios and such. But then the other thing that's interesting is when you get to the 4 chord, which is a G. Now, these are the bluegrass chords. We're not really pushing it too far. We push a little bit in this tune, but not very far. So the 4 chord is your G chord. And, for one thing, that high A gives you a kind of add 9 feel, a 7/9 feel to it, which I kind of like to just hear that in there. But that's not the most interesting thing to me. The most interesting thing to me is that you have all your G licks available to you, because you're still playing out of the G tuning and G position. So the licks you would use in a Scruggs tune, sort of like the Lester flat run, the G run on the guitar in bluegrass, the thing is ubiquitous. And you get a lot of that in the banjo too. You recognize these kinds of licks. Here you hear them too, but the surprise is that they're across the 4 chord instead of across the 1. It's no big deal, except you're sort of listening to it and you're not paying much attention to it. And then you hear these licks and you're like, oh, okay, I know where we are. But then, you realize, no, wait a minute, there's something funny about it. It's because it's across the 4 chord, so it goes to a different place than it does in a tune that's in G. So that's what I like, and I think, anyway, maybe it's just a good tune, I don't know. But that's it, and it's played by a guy named Jason Davis. And Jason Davis is just a great, great young banjo player. Well, I don't think he's young. He's not young compared to some of the kids these days who are just smoking a 5-string banjo. But he is young compared to me. Not saying much, pretty much everybody is. But he's a great, great player with super drive. Just that ability to just punch that banjo in a way that's not easy to do, and probably you just have to be born that way. I don't know, but he's got it, and so that's great. But also, he's always thinking, and even though he plays a lot of mostly traditional type Earl Scruggs stuff, somehow it's just a notch more imaginative than many, and he does some fun things with kind of classic Scruggs licks as well. So this one was, I think, originally recorded by the Pinnacle Mountain Boys, and I don't know who the original banjo player was for that band, but I think probably this was written by him, we'll say, and I was just thinking maybe Larry McNeely was a banjo player in that band too, but I don't think he wrote this one. In any case, I wasn't aware of the tune. I first heard it on the Jason Davis recording, recently, within the last 10 years. And his version is great, so I commend that to you. But this is it, and it's called Pinnacle Mountain Breakdown.